You're now listening to the segment From a Woman's Perspective with Dr. Christina Williams on the Primetime Power Show.
Good evening, everyone. I'm certainly glad to be with you again, as usual, with some wonderful topics to see what we can do. And this evening, I have a famous Mr. Carlos Ward. So we're going to have a conversation with him. We're going to talk a little bit about generational wealth, retirement, and we're going to talk a little bit about financial freedom. And so he has so much information to give you. So we're going to definitely try to give it to you in the time that is allowed us. So I'm asking you right now to go get an ink pen, a pencil, or whatever you need to take down the information that he's about to give you. So hello, Mr. Ward.
Hey, what's happening, Dr. Christina Williams? My pleasure to be with you tonight.
Yes. So we're going to start off because I know there's a wealth of information and a little bit of time to kind of bring it to our audience. And so I'm just going to start off by just saying welcome. Thank you for coming. And if you could open just to give us a little bit of information about yourself and about your agency and your company, and so that at least they'll know exactly who they're talking to or who they're listening to before we get into some great information. Okay? So you have the floor for a minute. How about that?
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Yeah. For those who do not know me, my name is Carlos Ward Jr. I'm a certified financial planner. I've been in the investment and retirement business for over 25 years. My website is efficientfrontiergroup.com. That's efficientfrontiergroup.com. And we named our company that because the Efficient Frontier is an investment strategy that focuses on matching the return to the risk that you take. And so we want to be very efficient in terms of how we help a client invest their dollars so that they can reach their maximum potential in terms of returns on their money. So with that, I did want to jump into this generational wealth piece that Christina mentioned to me. I know that for a lot of folks, it's almost an enigma to talk about. I think generational wealth is truly something that is cultural. It's an attitude, and you really have to focus on it in order for it to work. I'll give you guys an example. I had the pleasure of being able to help my sons buy a house, but what I did was they didn't have a choice. Just like college wasn't a choice, they had to purchase a house, right? It wasn't a chance for them. They wanted to rent. They're like, there's no way we could do this, Pop, right? But I made them move in that direction, helped them a little bit. And as I remember going and talking with the realtor, and it's just like, wow, you're helping your kids buy a house at, they're 22 years old, and she was like, I love my kids, but I wouldn't buy them a house. I'm like, I get it. But again, it's if you're in that mode of, we have to make a difference. We have to figure out how we can help each other, not just today, but tomorrow. Because I can tell you there's a lot of communities that look at that. They look at farms and making sure they pass their farms on. They look at estate taxes and making sure that those estate taxes are set up in such a way that most of the wealth is passed on from generation to generation. So again, having that attitude is key. I have some good news for you, and that is this. When you look at financial freedom and you look at retirement, they're one and the same. They're one and the same. If you're financially free, you can retire. And if you're retired, it's because you're financially free. So for a lot of folks, if they're focused on making sure that they're getting to a point of being financially free, they're really focused on that, they'll find that there will be wealth to pass on to the next generation. There is a Proverbs 13:22 that says, a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children and his children's children. A wise man leaves inheritance for his children and his children's children. Another Proverbs 21:20 says, in the house of the wise, there is choice food, but a foolish person stands it up, right? So let's talk a little bit about money. Money is nothing more than a derivative of your productivity, right? Because at the end of the day, money is a medium of exchange. You're borrowing your productivity, whatever you do, whether you develop a product or service. When you do that well, and you focus on doing that well, the value of your productivity will allow you to have additional money. Don't think of your job as just an income. Think of yourself as someone who's producing something that's going to create value for somebody else. The more we think about it that way, the more value we will have. If you're thinking more so on, how you're going to consume things, if that's your focus, what car you're going to drive or vacations, and that's really where you spend your time on is what am I going to get for myself? You're going to miss it. You're going to miss it. We want to put ourselves in a position where we're looking out for other people by creating value. Now, that works not only on a personal level, it works from a company level. If a company is really good at producing something and creating value, their production of the company's going to do well. If they're overspending and they're debt laden, eventually a lot of those companies go bankrupt. It's the same thing for countries, right? How do you measure whether or not a country is doing well? You look at their GDP, their gross domestic product. Right? The more we do that and not borrow from others so that we can consume, right? It puts us in a better position. And this is just basic principles that you can literally derive straight from the Bible. And so if you think about it in that way and start focusing on the productivity that you can provide to somebody else, just think about it for just a second. Before you get up in the morning and get out of your house, you're dependent on half the world, right? You can build the house that you live in. You can build the car that you drive in, the clothes, right? Somebody else did that. Someone else created that value. So when you go to work, you want to think about value. And if your work is not something that you feel is a part of your purpose, that's okay. Keep working at it, but add that portion of your life, of your time towards that passion that you have so that you can be productive and create that value. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And when we're talking about generational wealth is that you gotta put that time in to produce value. Because honestly, I'm just being very honest with you all. If you're not producing value and you don't have any income, not any income, but not any additional assets, there's nothing for us to talk about from an investing and saving perspective. So I want to start off with you want to produce value. And once you do that, we can talk about the next step, which is saving and investing. Let me stop right there. Christine, any questions, thoughts on that before we move on?
I do. I have a question. Because I think that some questions that's asked to me when we talk about general wealth, because people throw that around, generational wealth. People throw that phrase around as if it is something that we would automatically know. And so so you talked a little bit about it, but the inclusiveness of what do we need? For instance, if instead I have say I have a house, my house is paid for, and so forth and so on, and I have grandchildren and I have children that I would want to leave the property to. So are you saying the generational wealth of the property itself could be sustained through generations? Yes. But I guess my thought is there's other things that go into that, into owning that, or into doing a special project, or trying to stay focused in my in what my gift is. And so in saying that, we talk a little bit about, well, let me just say this first. I know that inheritance taxes is not part of every state. So every state does not have inheritance tax, but there are states that do have inheritance taxes. So you talked a little bit about taxes that they check on those type things. So how in depth do they go? And then what age group should I be thinking about generational wealth?
Okay, great question. And what I'll do is I'll take them one by one as we're going through this. So number one, there's a difference between income and net worth. Right? There's a difference between generating cash flow and having assets. Those are two different things. So as I was talking with the productivity part, at some point you have to have a positive cash flow. And so if you're being productive and you're managing your expenses, you're going to have a positive cash flow. With that positive cash flow, you can then invest into an asset, and that asset could be property or securities, right? And that's very important to do. And I would start thinking as far as age group. Honestly, I'd start right away. I mean, you can, for example, have a 529 plan that saves from a tax perspective for your grandchildren to make sure that they can go to college, all right? You can actually have them start an IRA extremely early with just $100 a month, which could be extremely beneficial for them, as they're starting off, their careers. So the earlier you start, the better it will be. There's something called the time value of money, and which basically just says a dollar today is not worth a dollar tomorrow. A dollar today is not worth a dollar tomorrow. What you want to do is the earlier you get started, and the interest rate that you get allows your funds to kind of snowball over time. So let me just give you an example of that. For example, let's say you make sure you're talking to your grandkids, and let's say they're age 29. So listen, you got to get started, and you got them started at age 29. Let's say they just put $1,000 away. Well, that $1,000 at 6% in interest would be worth $8,000. But if you could get them 12% in interest, that same $1,000 would be worth $64,000 by the time they reach age 65. But I'll take one step further. I'll take it one step further. Think about what the average interest rate is in the U.S. Now, it's funny, because it's changed. But if you think about the average interest rate for a credit card, it's over 20% these days. Let's say it was just 18%. All right, at 18%, right, what's happening to your dollar? Let's pretend that instead of the bank investing by giving you a loan and getting 18% back from you in the form of a credit card, let's say you were able to get 18%. If that 18% for your grandchild at age 29 and you just put $1,000 away, by the time your grandchild reached age 65, they'd have over $500,000. They'd have $512,000. So why is that important? The way compounding interest rate, they call it the magic compound interest for a reason. The earlier you start, the better interest rate you get over time makes a huge difference. So from an age group perspective, it's the sooner the better. It's the sooner the better, but not to be dismayed if you're past age 29, because there are other things and other ways that you could do to take care of yourself in retirement. But even better, as we're talking about generational wealth, there are tax things that you can do to help. So let's talk about that for a second as far as taxes are concerned. When I look at, planning someone's retirement, there's the accumulation phase and there's the distribution phase. The accumulation phase and the distribution phase. On the accumulation phase, there are some tax vehicles and tax strategies that you want to look at. All right. One of the things that I'll say to you all right off the bat is when we look at tax strategies, the two basic flavor of tax savings that everyone has available to them, two flavors: tax deferral and tax deduction. Tax deferral and tax deduction. Let's explain each one. With tax deferral perspective, if you invested $1,000, got 10% in interest, that's $100. Whatever income you get, IRS Code 61 says whatever income you get, Uncle Sam wants some. However, if you have it in the qualified plan, that $100 gets tax deferred, meaning no one will tax it, which means the compounding interest goes on top of that, right? So now next year you're making money on $1,100, and the next year, it just continues to grow, get that snowballing effects start going into place. That's tax deferral. But the other benefit that you got is tax deduction. Tax deduction means, let's say you make $100,000 a year, right? And, you put that $1,000 into a 401k. Well, on your W-2, it will say gross income $100,000, taxable income $90,000. Right? What that means is they took that off, so your AGI, all of that will be based on $90,000 instead of $100,000. That tax deductibility is also extremely helpful. So the qualified plans that you can do that with is 401ks, 403bs, and 457. Right? There's also IRAs if you're under a certain limit that you can also deduct. Right? So those are your two benefits: tax deferral and tax deductibility. Now, here a lot of people toss out, Roth IRAs and that kind of thing. So let me talk about the difference, because again, we're talking about the accumulation phase. So you're trying to accumulate assets. You want to take advantage of these. And I had a client actually today said, "Oh, my I have a 401k, but my employer is not matching it." I'm like, okay, I get that, but you still got this tax benefit. Go ahead and utilize it to your benefit and get that going. So let's talk about the Roth IRA, right? So yeah, tax deferral and tax deductions are the two flavors of benefit that you get from the IRS. With the Roth IRAs, you don't get that tax deductible. You only get tax deferral. Right? So what do I mean? Again, if you invest $1,000, get 10% in interest, that's $100,000. IRS is not going to tax it. Now, with the Roth IRA, you get that tax deferral benefit, but you get another benefit at retirement at the distribution phase. And that is that you do not have to pay taxes when you take the money out. Why is that important? Because on your 401k, where you do get that deduction. Right? Uncle Sam says, well, by the time you reach 72, if you haven't started taking out, you're required a minimum distribution that you have to start taking out because Uncle Sam, want to tax some of that. So Uncle Sam will tax your 401ks, your 403bs, your 457s, as well as your deductible IRAs. He will tax it when you actually start taking the money out in retirement. With the Roth IRA, he does not. He does not tax. So it's tax deferral. But when you actually retire, he will not tax it. So that's the great thing about it. I would say you have to talk to the advisor because it will depend on your tax bracket and things of that nature, whether or not, I should put money in my Roth IRA or should I put money in my 401k. It really depends on your specific situation. It's not a slam dunk. Because again, if you, let's say you say, oh, I'm just going to put everything in a 401k Roth IRA as an example, as opposed to a traditional 401k. Well, keep in mind that you are then throwing away the ability to have your W-2 say instead of 100, instead of saying 90,000 taxable income, now it's going to say $100,000 taxable income, and you're paying the taxes up front. So that's all that you're doing is with the Roth IRA, you're paying the taxes up front, and so that you don't have to pay them back end. With the traditional 401k and traditional IRA, you are, saving that tax money up front, which allows it to grow compound interest. And so there's a little bit of financial analysis you want to do, again, depending on where you think your tax bracket will be when you actually retire. So that's a little bit about the accumulation phase from a tax perspective. From an investment perspective, if you're in the accumulation phase, you want to look at growth type of investments. You want to look at equities. You want to look at emerging markets. You want to look at mid cap and small cap type of investments to help, give you that additional interest over time. So let me stop there on the accumulation before we talk about the distribution phase.
Yeah, because listen, this is the thing. This is a lot of information, but it is so. I think that my experiences were at the beginning. I really didn't have to take anything out. You know what I mean? So, but the fear, and I think that when we went through that period in 2019 or 2020 with the COVID, they changed the age bracket. So, which helped me a lot because I really didn't even think about, having to take a certain amount out to be taxed. Of course you're never thinking about the taxes. And so it was shocking to see the amount of taxes that come out when you just request on something. So I wanted people to understand that there was taxes involved. Some people think that as long as I have the money in there and I can have it in there forever and it will never be taxed. And then when they want to take some dollars out, they find that, okay, you're taking some out and they're going to take 10%. 15%, that this hypothetical, 15% of whatever it is that I asked for is kind of mind boggling. I think because while you're doing it, it starts coming out your paycheck or whatever the case may be while you're working, and you don't miss it. But then when you see how it's grown and you're ready to take something out, Uncle Sam is like, oh, okay, you ready to take something out? We're ready to receive our proof and also. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's good. So if we talked about the accumulation and the distribution, I just want people to understand that there's just not a one-sided program or plan to, to make everything okay, and you're going to avoid taxes because you never avoid those.
Right, you got to plan for it. And so let me explain something real quick, and that is oftentimes these 401k, these qualified plans, they're also called deferred compensation plans. So what does that mean? You are deferring your compensation, and so therefore, when you retire and you're taking it out, it's no different than you actually working from Uncle Sam's perspective, because now they're just simply looking at your the money that you're taking out as compensation, ordinary income, which means it's going to be based on your tax bracket, which you're going to have a marginal tax bracket that grows with your income. So you do plan it. I'm going to, let's say it's December and I can defer, taking that money out instead of me taking it all out right now. Maybe I just need to take a little bit out right now and then take some more next year. Do that, because now what you're doing is you're planning and you're moving that compensation to another year. I'll give you another example. Let's say you're going to retire in November, right? And so now you've been working all year. So you're at let's say you paid $100,000 up till November. Well, then if you go ahead and take out, say, $50,000 out of your 401k to put, siding on your house or home improvement, whatever, from Uncle Sam's perspective, you did just stick 100,000, you made $150,000.
Right.
He sort of taxed you in that way. And so it's deferred compensation when you're in a qualified plan. And so they tax you as compensation, as ordinary income when you take that money out. What you could have done is say, instead of me doing the home improvement just before Christmas, I'm going to defer that till January. Or maybe you take a loan in December, right? Because the loan is not going to cost you what it's going to cost you from a tax perspective. You take a loan in December for that home improvement so the family can enjoy Christmas, right? But then you pay that loan off in December. Let's see, not December, in January, because in January, you didn't make anything, right? You're now retired. And so your income is going to be much less. And so you do it that way. So there's a lot of tax strategies that you can implement to make sure that you don't get hit harder than you should.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that was wonderful. I wish I would have known that. How about that? I'm kidding. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Thank you
Oh,
so
good.
much.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
very much. So listen, so let's talk a little bit about what financial freedom is. Because I think that people of retirement age or people that are retired, they often say, I can't wait to pay my house off, my bills off. I'm gonna pay all this stuff off and then I'll have financial freedom. And then you turn around and something happens in the house or whatever the case may be. And now you have to take a loan out or whatever the case may be, and feeling that, okay, now I'm in debt again. What is the benefit of actually being in debt? Because even when you want to buy something, they look for your credit. They look at your credit score, and then you come to find out you don't owe anybody anything. And so now your credit score is just like standard because you're not in debt. Is that part of what financial freedom is, or is there another understanding that is simpler for people to understand?
Let's
We talk
talk
about
that real
financial
quick.
freedom.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So first of all, let's take credit out for a sec. Okay.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, you got to ask yourself the question: is that good or is that bad? Is that good or is that bad? And the answer to that is it depends. Right? What are you taking the debt out for? If you're taking debt out for depreciating assets, such as a car, such as a vacation, such as clothing, furniture, these things do not produce any additional income for you. And so it's making you work harder if you're taking out debt for that reason. If you take out debt for appreciating assets, such as the property that you were mentioning, right? That's a complete different story because now let's just use an example. You have $100,000, you have $10,000 and you decide you're going to buy a house and you're going to have a loan of value of 90 to 1, meaning you're going to put $10,000 down on that house. It's worth $100,000 today. Not tomorrow, let's say next year, that house went from 100,000 to 110,000, right? Think about this for a second. You put down 10,000 out of your pocket. The house went from 100,000 to 110,000. If you sold the house at 110,000, remember you took a loan out for 90,000, which means that now you have to pay that $90,000 back, which leaves you down with $20,000, right? 110 minus 90, you doubled your out of pocket investment. That's good debt, right? And I will say to you that if you're just getting rid of debt and that's all you're doing, you're missing out because you do want to have assets. Why? The way the U.S. economy works, it is created based on debt, meaning they put dollars out there. You just look at 2020, they infuse money into the economy. When they do that, right, the demand for products and services go up. And so therefore, you have to pay more for those products and services. If you don't have assets, right, you're not keeping up. If you had your money in securities, well, guess what? AWS or Amazon, they went up in value. Why? Because the demand went up for them because there was more money in the economy. And so you have to own assets. You want to own securities investment, property investment, because when the economy goes up, right, and we have what we call asset inflation, meaning there's a a boom in securities or there's a boom in property, if you're not in, you lose out. And people get behind. I have a young man that I'm mentoring, and I tried, and he was well qualified. We did everything to get him to buy a townhouse, a condo, or something, right? 10 years ago, and he wasn't ready. And he wasn't ready. He just kept pushing it off, pushing it. Good job, everything, but he just wouldn't do it. He was. I don't know why, but now he says, "Man, I wish because interest rates are higher. I still think it's a good. You still should invest, but because the interest rates are higher, it's a little bit tougher for him, and he's behind. And you will notice that a lot of the young people are further behind than we were. Why? Because there's just so much more money in the system. If you don't own assets, you will be left behind, no doubt about it. So you want to look at that in that way. Just look at it as, will it help me? And I'll give you a scripture for it. Go to 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 1, where the widow was like, my husband wasn't that ill, and me and my two boys were gonna have this last meal. We're gonna die. And Elijah said, "Well, what do you have?" And she said, "Well, I have these jars." Excuse me, she had the oil. So he said, "Well, go borrow some jars, put the oil in it, right? And just keep doing that. Go behind closed doors, being focused, do your productivity, right?" And then after she did all that productivity, her and her sons behind closed doors, right? They came back out, and what did he tell her to do? Go sell it. Right. That's what I'm saying. It's nothing wrong with having a side that or something else that you have passion about, you're being productive about. He said, go sell it. And then he said, pay your debt off. See what I'm saying? So yes, that can be good, right? But that can be bad. It's just a matter of where your mindset is. Use the funds for appreciating assets or for income earning assets. And then that puts you in the U.S. economic game so that you can do well. You do have to be careful when you use debt for leverage. I typically, depending on the assets, it's going to be different. But if you stick to around a 50% LTV, loan to value, it typically puts you in a good position, because sometimes people get crazy. They figure it out. They're like, oh yeah, and they're over leveraged, meaning everything is at 90, 100, 110% leverage, and then when the economy goes down, because it will. Right, kind of sell all their assets at a fire sale, or of course, I've seen it. They go into bankruptcy. Right, so you got to think through, what am I passionate about? But then you got to be a good steward. Wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. Right, be a good steward with those funds and utilize it to grow. But don't get greedy to the point where you're now, we like to say in the investment industry, you don't know who's swimming naked until the tide goes out. Right, the tide goes out. Then you're done. So you want to be careful about that.
Thank you. Listen, Carlos, we are out of time, but I really want to invite you back because, of course, there are a wealth of questions and all this kind of stuff. And I really appreciate you being my financial advisor for so long. I mean, longer than some people have been alive. But I do think that it's very, very important for communities of people to understand that it is necessary to make sure that your storehouse is well equipped and well protected for your time of age. So by the time you're ready to retire, because I really want to talk about the next time, talk a little bit about people that do this early retirement thing, and where does their Social Security tie into their generational wealth, and how do they obtain their Social Security, and how do they come about getting the amount that they get, and what should they do with it when you are in retirement? Should you invest? Should you just live off of what you have been investing in? So I want to talk a little bit about to the retiree, or to the potential retiree, or those that wish to retire, because the first thing people say is, I only have 2 more years at work. I can't wait to retire. And then they get out here and realize that they don't have enough to sustain themselves. And so they have to go out and get other jobs just to survive. So I just want to do that. But I want to thank you so much for giving us what you gave us so far,
Oh,
and
my
at least
pleasure.
we know. Yes, and I'm really going to get you to come back soon because I don't want people to forget. You know what I mean? I want them to still be on the road of recovery for some, and some of these younger people will take their advice and start now, especially at 18. I told my grandsons, both of them, they're adults now, but I told them when they were having these little jobs, 15 and 16 years old, that they need to also make sure that they put some aside because some of the jobs also took out for Social Security and things like that. So
100%.
thank you. Yep. So thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. Do you have any questions, Reverend Nag?
Nope, I'm all good. Carlos, if you want to give your business information again and how people can contact you, that'd be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you both. Yes. Again, Carlos Ward Jr. You can just go to our website. It's efficientfrontiergroup.com. That's efficientfrontiergroup.com. You can find us there. And all of our contact information is right there.
Thank you so much. And listen, and I know that, yep, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit after this. Don't hang up. So when we when he hangs up, you're going to hang up, right? I'm going to call you right back, Carlos, for a minute, just for a minute. When we hang up from this, I thank you guys so much for attending. This is yours truly, Dr. Christina Williams. This is From a Woman's Perspective on the Primetime Radio. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Thank you so much, Carlos. Great interview.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the exclusive segment brought to you by the Primetime Power Show. Check us out for the live radio show Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Primetime Power Radio. For more information, go to our website, primetimepowershow.com. Thank you for listening.